Jim Ryun already was a celebrity by the time he first stepped on the track at Kansas's Memorial Stadium. That happens when you become the first high schooler to break the 4-minute barrier in the mile, as well as the youngest American male track athlete to ever qualify for the Olympics. As a Jayhawk, Ryun boosted attendance and shattered records as he compiled victory after victory during his collegiate career, culminating in a handful of NCAA titles, 4 world records in 3 events, and several appearances on the cover of Sports Illustrated. His collegiate record in the 800 stood for an astounding 50 years, which is even more remarkable since he was known foremost as a miler. Let's give a rock chalk Jayhawk for Hall of Famer Jim Ryun.
And please welcome to the stage Jim Ryun, presenting the Hall of Fame medal, Kansas head coach Stanley Redwine.
Tell us what that one is.
That's the Presidential Medal of Freedom that I received a couple of years ago. It's a very special honor. Happy to be a recipient. By the grace of God, all these years, and I'm still alive, and I got it before I died. That's very special.
Wow. So they don't just give that to anybody either, just like this.
It's very special. In fact, our children all commented on the fact, again, Dad, you got it before you died, so be grateful, and I am.
Very good. You broke a world record, and you couldn't even make the varsity. That's a hell of a thing.
It's certainly an interesting time, isn't it?
It is.
You know, John, if I can share this with you, I was the guy who in junior high was cut from the church baseball team, so it wasn't like there was a bright future. But I remember going to bed at night and saying a very simple prayer, Dear God, I really appreciate if you'd help me make something of my life, and then I'd recount being cut from the church baseball team and cut from the basketball team, and then I'd end the prayer with, and if you have something for me in sports, I'd appreciate if you show up sooner than later. So, you know, that it came to be a world record was not even my spirit thinking. I had a wonderful coach, Bob Timmons, who was not only my mentor, but he was a visionary. He was, after my 4th high school race, we were riding a school bus from Kansas City back to Wichita, and he always called each of the athletes up to the front to visit with them and challenge them. My time. I won that day, 4:21. I sat down and he said, now how fast do you think you can run? And I was so immature. I mean, it was sophomore in high school. I thought I might run a couple seconds faster with the wind behind my back, which, as you know, on an oval track doesn't happen. and then he proceeded to say, I think you can be the high school record holder, which was then held by the school I was in at East High School, and run faster than that. And I thought, how is that possible? Because I was thinking in terms of my head hurt, my legs hurt, my lungs hurt. And, you know, you only think of what you have at that moment. And then he said, I think you can be the first high school boy to run under 4 minutes. And eventually it led to a world record. So he was the kind of guy who every athlete needs to have in their life, someone who's willing to present a challenge and provide the workouts along the way to make that happen. So world record, I was grateful. In fact, my wife, Ann, is out here. She came up after the world record in Berkeley when I ran 3:51.3 and said, may I have your autograph? And being the really swell guy from Kansas, I said, how about later? Fortunately, it was on a blind date, Thanksgiving in 1966. We've been married over 50 years now. My wife, Ann, is out here as well.
But she was a groupie.
I'll let her respond to that one.
No, when she came through. When you were running, 4 minutes was still magical. And it's amazing that it's still magical today. And yet, I don't want to say it's commonplace, but why is it so many kids are able to hit that now?
Well, in my day, when I ran into 4 minutes, there were 2 others that followed behind me, Tim Danielson and Marty LaCour. And then there was this long gap before anybody else did. So there became the thought that if you ran fast early on, you would burn out. And that held back a lot of people, a lot of young runners. And now we've had a breakthrough, and I think there's a greater understanding that you can run fast early and still continue to mature and grow. I would challenge those as you listen. You can go to our website, ryanrunning.com, and on that I list June 4th, 1964. I give the background for the first high school 4-minute mile, and I give a lot of the workouts. In fact, one of the policies that my coach had was to break down a race every 110 yards, so he's got all the splits. But what happened then that night was transformed my life. It was my coach's goal to start with. And I thought, I don't really know what I'm doing, we'll do it. And it became, I was the first high school boy. That night as I was lying in bed, I thought, wow, what happens if I take ownership of this and I get really more involved? And so I did. I started doing more things like sleeping correctly, eating right, all that. And it led to world records. But it was Coach Simmons, the gift God gave me, and it led to some wonderful experiences that we can all relate to, how our lives were being transformed by the experiences we had in athletics.
So the producer wants me to wrap this up, but I'm just, real quick, David, I'm going to point to this and tell you I get an extra question just because he's got one of those, and if you want to cut me off, do it at your own peril. Are you ever shocked that some of your times, though, are still, you would be at the front of every race still today in 2020, whether it's the half or the 15?
I am still shocked, yes. In fact, I was reminded in coming out that the half mile stood for 50 years in an NCAA record. So, those were moments in time which you have a hard time reflecting on that it happened to you. And again, especially as I look back as a child when I was cut from those teams, I would never have imagined my life would turn out as it is. But it's an answer to prayer. I thank God for the talent, and I thank Him for all the wonderful people who've put in my life, including my wife, Ann, who's put up with some enormous, wonderful things and real challenges, especially when you run for political office. People say some horrible things about you, and she had to listen to that and kept praying, and we're still married today, happily married.
And I point that out because if the rest of the people involved in this panel right here were to run in the next 4 days, Charlie's times will be competitive. 19 would put you pretty much at the top of the heap over there, and Rodney Milburn's times. Trey Cunningham is exceptional, but he'd still challenge for the podium. All these people, fantastic performances, fantastic athletes, and they're the reason you're all Hall of Famers. Congratulations.